We met a month ago. It's kind of hard to believe a month has passed already. It does go so quickly. But it was a month ago that we met. And, we thought we would just kind of start by doing a quick recap of the meeting from February, just kind of, quick rehashing of what we discussed, and then jump into today's agenda. Connie wanted to talk a little bit about, just the population that we're serving, some of the things that are unique and uniquely challenging about this population, about connecting with this population. And Macy from US Vets is going to talk a bit about the existing system, really help people to think about what makes a good referral and what do we do with referrals and that kind of thing. And then to jump into a by name list, as we had discussed last time, and some next steps. So when we look at what we talked about last time, I think, we sort of had this general consensus, right, that homelessness has been increasing in the area, and, many people voiced concerns about that. The concerns are pretty broad. We have a diverse group of people here, right? So everybody is concerned about different things. Some people are concerned about public health and safety. Some people are concerned about appearances. Some people are just really have a desire and a compassion to help, right? And so we're all sort of coming at this from different perspectives, but I think we all have really a shared goal, which is to get people connected to the help they need and to, help them to get off the streets to a safer, better home. That is, meant for habitation, as we say. So, no matter where you're coming at this from, hopefully, we can come together with a shared understanding of what needs to be done and a shared plan and path for moving forward. Some of the things we talked about last week were just, start to get to know, for those of you who are not, involved in the system, get to know what the resources are, help refer people if they're unsafe. And we gave some phone numbers, which we'll share again at the end. And just talked about, acting when and if you can, if you feel comfortable, to get people connected to the help they need. We also talked about this concept of a by name list, and getting people on a list so that we can really figure out who they are, where they are, what's the help they need. And so we're going to spend some time talking about that today. Another takeaway from last time was that landowners and property managers and business owners want a different kind of training on how to engage with the population, what the rights are about trespassing and that kind of thing. And so we're looking at another meeting, likely late April, for that population specifically, to kind of talk about how do we engage and how do we deal with those types of situations, both legally and ethically, and all those types of things. And then we kind of agreed that we all need to help push for more housing and help push for support for the mentally ill, which are, contributing to the homeless crisis that we have. So with that said, I think Connie was going to take it from here and kind of talk a little bit about sort of how things are working now and some ideal models to replicate.
Thanks, Jill. I just wanted to, have us look at this diagram, because it kind of talks about how complex the systems are that we're working with right now. And, in every jurisdiction, there are outreach teams that are contracted, by different people. And so, like in your area, that's US Vets that has the DHS funded outreach, for people to help them get back into housing. US Vets also has, other contracts, that help specifically veterans, but they also have some other services in the area that help other people also. So, but I wanted to just mention that there are outreach teams in every area. And, we're also funded for our particular areas for outreach, but our contract also includes one with Adult Mental Health Division. And then Macy, your partner out there for mental health is Hope Inc., is it, Macy?
That's correct. Hope
Okay. So they actually, when you see a mentally ill person, they're the people that, really should be called upon to respond to some of those folks, because they're specifically contracted to help the homeless mentally ill. And similarly, there may be some other contractors, and I think maybe US Vets has some contracts, for substance abuse treatment, maybe with ADAD. Is that correct, Macy?
We don't have one with ADAD at the moment.
Okay,
Right now.
so yeah, and so maybe what we need to do is go find out from ADAD who's supposed to be doing substance abuse outreach, you know, in that area. But certainly it's you know, somebody else that could be a resource, you know, to the Eva Kapolei area. So, you know, if I look around this particular diagram, in the middle is really the function of stabilizing and treating and providing wraparound support and housing navigation for the individual who is homeless. And so there's a lot of different types of, you know, like contracted services, you know, that are able to interface with them. But then the blue ones are other ones too, that like for us, you know, we consider them kind of part of the whole system, but they're not really part of the homeless service system necessarily. So there's, you know, the Honolulu Police Department, of course, that's responding to a lot of the homeless calls. Then we have emergency rooms, you know, in the area, and probably for you guys, that would be Polimomi and is there another one up there? Polimomi and Queens, right? So Queens West. So they are often, you know, dealing with some of the folks, you know, that you have that are reached the level of, say, like an MH1, you know, in that lower right-hand corner. Those are people that are behaving in a way that they're looking like they're dangerous to other people, and that we are able to help the person get into treatment by either it's a police officer that sees them, or if we feel like, you know, we determine that person is mentally ill enough to meet the standard of what we call an MH2 or an oral ex parte with a judge, then we call the judge and we say, Judge, this person is really, really sick. They're super vulnerable. You know, their legs look horrible. They really need to go to the emergency room, but they don't want to go, and they're mentally ill. So would you let us, you know, basically get the person in to the emergency room? And so we might call the ambulance, or we might call the police, whoever would be able to help us get the person to the emergency room. The judge said, okay, that's a process. And I wanted to share with you guys that we are doing a training on that piece also later on this month. And you know, if you're interested, you can write in the chat that you're interested, and then we'll put you guys on the list of invitees. Some of you have already been invited, so if you're interested, just let us know. We want to, you know, really deal with, you know, and make friends and, you know, develop relationships with the emergency rooms. For us in Honolulu, we got like a lot of emergency rooms that we're dealing with, and they're all like letting us know sometimes, you know, when these high users are kind of coming into the system. So that box right above emergency rooms, you know, where we have intensive case management. That is about homeless intensive case management for what we call high users of the emergency room, or they get MH1 a lot. In other words, the police are taking them in repeatedly. For us, we have these people that just, you know, they're doing some pretty outrageous things. Like, you know, some of the people in Chinatown, they just are disrobing in front of everybody, and they're behaving in ways that are just unacceptable. So in those cases, you know, the police get called, and many times they're taken to the emergency. Yes. Was that? Is that?
I'm on a call. Can I call you back?
I thought they were talking to me. Sorry. So anyway, you know, those are folks that are engaged with those high users, and then I just want to let you know that this is our outreach navigation that we do for the city, and the city is for the whole island, and it's for people we think need a guardianship, you know, or need an ACT order, assisted community treatment order, which is court-ordered treatment, or a guardianship to basically make decisions for them because they're so mentally ill or so out of it that, you know, they really can't make decisions very well for themselves.
Connie, can you kind of explain the process when someone is so mentally ill? You know, I think, as Sergeant Kaikina pointed out, we are talking about the users and the abusers here. We're not talking about the person who's, you know, camping out under the tree, you know, he's abiding all the rules, you know, he gets a coffee or something like that. We're talking about the users and abusers here. They are trained to go in and out of the system. They are flooding the emergency rooms and taking up valuable space that could be used for, COVID patients. They could be used for other medical uses that, it's just a drain on that particular system. What is prescribed to those particular individuals at the time they get into the emergency to the time or the point that they are let go? I think that is kind of sort of what we need to understand goes on, and where we need to, that's the crux of the issue, I feel. Can you help explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. Peter,
sorry, my kids are crazy in the background.
That's okay. I think that's a really good question. And before you got on, I think I mentioned that we're having a training actually on that topic, and it'll be a longer training. But briefly, I can tell you that a lot of these folks, probably the ones you're talking about, let me guess, they're high on ice, and they are, definitely repeat, offenders that way. And, when they go to the emergency room, they might get something to just kind of bring them down. And then they're supposedly okay, and then they're out again. Right? So one of the sad things is that there doesn't seem to be, actually what they call a medication-assisted treatment that is recognized for meth abuse. However, what we have done is to really treat them symptomatically. And sometimes when somebody is they're so chronically messed up on the meth that they really look like they're schizophrenic. Yeah. They really cannot understand sometimes, and they pretty much are psychotic in that moment. And so we do use antipsychotics. And to let you know, if somebody's been using methamphetamine for a long time, several years, they actually sustain brain damage, to the point where it takes a long time for them to recover. And even with medications, it's a healing process that has to take place. So I think it's probably one of the worst tragedies, that Hawaii has had to sustain, is to deal with all of this meth abuse, because it's just robbed us of a lot of loved ones, and it's really destroyed the lives of a lot of people and a lot of families as well. So briefly, Peter, I think that right now, the things that are done in the emergency room are very short term, and it's not really long term. And that's why I tried to introduce a bill, this session in the legislature, that talks about, treating people a little bit longer term, in the emergency room. But I'm getting a lot of kickback on that, because they say, well, you shouldn't be able to do that without going to court. And it's going to court that really adds a lot of time to that whole process.
Yeah, I feel like there is, sort of a bottleneck with the court procedure, obviously. And I feel like there's a bottleneck in prescribing certain drugs to calm that person down. And I think if we could release that bottleneck somehow, that would help the process. I don't know if it would necessarily cure it, but you hear things like methadone clinics, and I hear about them, but I don't know what goes on, how it works. And I know it's a very, very dangerous drug, and it's hard to come back from it. So I just want to understand more about that process, because I feel like that's one of the largest issues that we're dealing with. I'm not here on this call because I'm dealing with, the guy who has a sign up or something like that. I'm dealing with the guy who's stealing the copper wire from our streetlights every night, and we got to go replace it for $90,000 every time. So I think,
Peter, when you talked about methadone, it's actually a medication-assisted treatment for opiates, people who are addicted to heroin and stuff like that. So it's really different, when somebody is addicted to meth, because like I said, alcohol, there's treatment, opiates, there's treatment. But methamphetamine abuse, no real treatment that, directly changes, their cravings and stuff. there's new stuff and experimental stuff coming out, but there's not, a whole lot that is supported by the medical community right now, in a real evidence-based way. But like I said, what we've been doing is really trying to treat them more symptomatically, and we are having some success. But I want to actually do a study more, to see whether we can't get something that is, more that becomes more evidence-based. But nevertheless, we have prescribed, antipsychotics for some people who have, shown that kind of symptomology with meth abuse, and it has been helpful in changing their behaviors. But I think the kind of person that you're talking about is really somebody that has to be a community effort that involves law enforcement as well, because they're clearly breaking the law. They're doing criminal acts when they're starting to steal the kind of stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And no doubt they've already stolen from their families, all the way anyway. And this is now going more into the community. So it does have to be sort of like a partnership with our police department, as well as, just, I think everybody getting on board that at some point you have to enforce and not just say, oh, the person is, addicted or whatever, and that's not an excuse for bad behavior. An excuse.
Can I jump in on that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that Senator Favela?
So we do enforce. We have an individual right now who's got about 16 open cases.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Alan Jardine. The problem is not us.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when it gets to the prosecutor's office,
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to prosecute individuals like this. Because he's borderline mentally unstable, they won't prosecute him. So he comes back out, and we end up going through this hamster on a wheel kind of thing where we arrest them and put them back into the system. But prosecutors, they don't want to touch the case, so they dump it. Alan Jardine has damaged copper wire. He's damaged a lot of electrical boxes at our beach parks along the Waianae coast. And as much time as we arrest them, as fast as we arrest them, the prosecutor's office let them out.
Okay,
So we do enforce. What needs to change is we need our elected officials to try and see if they can change the process on how we prosecute these individuals. Because, Alan Jardine is not the only one. We have a lot of individuals that have mental illnesses. And the law is pretty clear that if they're not in their right mind, they're not going to prosecute these individuals. But what do we do with these individuals? Yeah, Alan Jardine, he's an RCP. He's homeless. His family doesn't want to engage with him anymore. He's out there by himself. He's damaging property. And so, when we go to arrest him, it's
he's like untouchable.
And it's frustrating for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're not enforcing. We are, but after they leave us, then it's out of our hands.
Okay, so what I'd like to propose, and somebody like that, we have a program, and I was just going to talk about that, the Outreach Navigation Program, which is about assisted community treatment and guardianship. And assisted community treatment actually allows court-ordered treatment for somebody. And I think I would also, in that case, though, I would be having a discussion with the prosecutor's office. And I think for me, I feel like, we deal a lot with the legal system in these assisted community treatment orders. And I think it's high time that we have that discussion with our new prosecutor as well. Is this guy, is he usually addicted to ice? Is that why he's stealing and stuff?
No.
Oh, really? He's just
homeless.
mentally.
I mean, I'm sure he's got some sort of drug problem, but we don't observe that when they arrest him. I mean, when we arrest him, he's coherent. He understands what he's being arrested for. But like I said, after we arrest him, he goes into the system. It's out of our hands. I mean, we've had cases where we just talked about this with Senator Favela last week, Friday, where we have an individual that is one of our hardcore homeless in the RCPs at Howell Bush. His name is Lewis. And, you know, when we do our SPOs and we have to enforce the park laws and whatnot, he doesn't, there's no fear in him to get arrested or get cited anymore, because he had several judges that he went before to answer to these citations and or arrests. And the judges tell him, when you go back out there to Hal Bush, tell those police officers, do not waste my time. And they drop the case. Yeah, so what are we supposed to do with that? Right? So
Officer,
here we are, we're trying to do our best, keep the community safe, keep the parks clean. You know, we have all of our elected officials within our district trying their best, but now it goes up to the court level and the judge is saying this, don't waste my time. Like, you know, what are we supposed to do with that? You know?
Officer,
it's frustrating.
Officer, I appreciate your comments and all of your efforts. This is more of a question. You know, as you're telling this story, it's built up over time. Has this been with the new prosecutor's office or just your experience over the, you know, time?
This actually just started, not with Steve Alm's office, but it was actually occurring last year, before and during the COVID. But this situation with you know, our RCPs, you know, it's not only the new administration that's got to change, but you know, the whole entire process with regards to, you know, we understand that these are unfortunate situations and circumstances for these individuals, but you know, if we don't have any sort of discipline taken against them, then they're going to continue doing what they're doing at the beach parks or the community parks, and then where are we supposed to go from there?
So I'm not Steve Alm, so I can't totally speak for him, but I've had meetings with him on this subject, exactly what you're talking about, officer. And I know this is good for this group. I think that he participated before in the weed and seed activity in Chinatown when he was U.S. attorney, and then he did the same on the bench. And so he likes a system where he does prosecute, but rather if the person would choose to be diverted into a program and take probation, he tries to do that. And so I think that we can't take the last 4 years as where we're going. I think we need to continue to get these messages and interact with his office and see if something can be different. We had in the program where we were looking for diversions into the program, we were getting zero. We were getting volunteers into the program, getting zero. And there's a real problem when the individual doesn't want to do something. There's ACLU issues and such. So the concept that he's trying to do is if the person chooses not to be prosecuted, then they choose a program, then it circumvents that issue. So we're just in the midst of sorting that out. It's very current what I'm talking about, and it hasn't been fully, you know, vested and everything. But those are the conversations I've been having with them, which is quite a bit different.
And if they have that, and they're providing that option for these individuals,
that's where he's trying to go.
Great.
Yeah, that's where he's trying to go. We have the programs are there to be diverted into. We just got to get that process.
I mean, that's great if they are, but so far with what's going on with the ones that we come into contact with, the RCPs that I'm talking about, options are not being offered going into these programs. But the other thing is, what if they don't want? What if they don't want any sort of help? What if they're saying, you know what, I don't need it, what have you? Then what is the court system going to do from there? If this individual refuses to get any sort of help as well, just like how the same individual, Lewis, he doesn't want to go into any shelter. He doesn't want to get any help whatsoever because according to him, he has a timestamp on a daily basis where community members come to the park and they feed him. And he doesn't want to give that up. He doesn't want no help at all. And these are the ones that we're dealing with where they just don't want to leave.
Understood. And I think that those are people that call for what I call a community plan. They don't just get a plan with a service provider, but the community has to agree. Like, just like you said, they shouldn't be feeding him all the time if that's what keeps him in place, right? You know, so we need to talk to those people that are feeding out, you know, in the park over there, and specifically with him, you know. I want to get back to, you know, these assisted community treatment I would like to, after we finish our thing today, if you don't mind giving me your numbers, Peter, and is it Captain or Major Kahikina? I don't know what your
Sergeant.
Yeah, Sergeant. So Sergeant, so if you put your name and number in the chat box, I can get back to you guys, and I'd like to start working on the act order for that guy, which is assisted community treatment, which is court ordered treatment, which then we could maybe try to bring that before while we're trying to also prosecute, because I think that both ways have to be really applied in some cases. But this would allow us to bring it before, and if you could help us by giving him his rap sheet, and his convictions and or just the charges that he's been under, that would really help us, because when we go to court we have to show that, look at this guy, this is all the stuff that he's been doing, and we have to convince the judge that he really needs treatment. Other thing that we normally need is information about their family, because they have to sign off and say it's okay for us to do this, that they don't want to be the guardian, and we can do this assisted community treatment. So to the extent that you know the family, Peter or Sergeant Kaikina, you can let us know and we can contact them. We can talk to them. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So anyway, this diagram is just to show you that there's a lot of people involved, because some of the people that you encounter, they also have what we call CCS case managers. The CM is a case manager, and they might also be going to the emergency rooms and stuff. So what we want to do is circle the wagons and get everybody who's been touching that person in different ways to know and to share the fact that they are, and how we can better help that person. So
do we have anybody from the U.S. Vets?
From the Senate?
U.S. Vets.
U.S. Vets, yeah. Macy's on. You see Macy there?
Okay, so what I like to know for Ever Beach, how much times a month do you guys come out to the Ever Beach community, and what does it look like when you guys come out?
So hi Senator, thank you for the question. So we come out there every other week, and Hawbush is one of our hotspots. We are currently working with quite a number of households at Hawbush, and we will also respond to any calls that we get. I have a few slides that I'm going to be sharing with you folks, just to show you exactly what our process is and how what we do when we receive referrals, or if somebody contacts us about a homeless person or a growing population.
So maybe this is a good time, actually, Macy, for you to share your slides. Jill, do you mind turning it over to Macy so that she can share her slides?
Yep, I just stopped our share, and Macy, you should be able to share. If you can't, let me just make sure. I'll make you a co-host, actually.
So the only reason why I bring this up is because we are talking about the guys who are still on drugs, the guys who had drug addiction and drug habits. So my experience is that not everybody reaches on the street because of drugs. They end up coming along with drugs, and that's the reason why I'm asking, because before the vets came in, we had Waikiki Health Center that did absolutely nothing but take names, write grants, and they'll come out for years. So that's the problem right there. We got to make sure our wraparound service also includes with the guys who's going to be doing the input for the people and the follow-up, and we got to make sure that we have a shelter in place, which we don't. In Kalaeloa, the 2 shelters need to be overhauled because we get people living there for 5 years. So we guys going to get all these components working, HPD doing their job, and then we're going to get these guys who's chronically don't want to do nothing, and you guys do that job. But how is all of this going to work with a failing shelter and a falling apart program here that we have in the community when it comes to emergency shelter? We get guys in an emergency shelter living there for 5 years. So how are we gonna get people off the street into programs in Kalaeloa or in the West Side, when we have failing programs from the Civic Center to Kalaeloa? And that's the problem that has been going on for like about the last 3 to 4 years, and it's getting worse. And that's the reason why on the Waianae Coast, you have the booming population of transit and homeless problem, because the shelters that's supposed to be going out there or helping and receiving them are not doing their job. And US Vets just came on board, so US Vets going to be helping. That is fine, but it makes sense you guys sign them up for programs if there's nobody to receive them.
Thank you, Macy.
Thank you. So hopefully you can see my slides there about our, so I'm just going to go over our outreach program and what it is exactly that we do, and hopefully that'll answer some of your questions, Senator. So as Connie was mentioning, you know, all of the different areas on the island, there's 7 regions, and US Vets is assigned to Region 3, which includes Kapolei and Eva, as you can see on the map. Can everybody see the map there? Okay. Good. Sometimes I'm not sure what part of the slide is being shown. So what we do is we do 2 types of outreach. We do field outreach, which is the street-based, the one where we go out to the community. And as I was mentioning, Senator, we go out there twice a week or every other week, engaging with those folks that are on the streets, at the parks, at the beaches, and trying to connect them with services. But we also try our best to do community-based outreach, so where we can work with the partners that are in the community, other service providers that are in this area, and those who volunteer groups that are there. And then somebody was mentioning earlier about a group that feeds the homeless, right? So we want to engage with those groups, because if they're feeding them, we want to know that there's a population that they're feeding, because we should be partnering with this group, so that way when they engage, when they're providing food, that we can come in and partner with services to get them connected to shelter, housing, and whatnot. What our outreach specialists do when they're out in the community every other week is they engage and link the individuals to services but first they have to work on getting to know them, right? They got to gain their trust, and they got to build rapport. And sometimes that doesn't happen right away or at the first time that we talk to them. But while we're there to also inform the community of the programs and the additional services that are available. So shelters, what shelters have vacancies, what shelters or what housing options are available. We want to talk to them about those type of services. And then also employment and other benefits that they can access. You know, increasing the awareness, because up until I think last month, a lot of the folks that were on this call didn't even know that US Vets had the contract. And thankfully, Connie and Jill were able to put this meeting together so that way, you know, we can have this discussion and let everybody know that US Vets is here, and that, you know, if you, that we are the ones that can help with the homeless in your neighborhood. So the services that we provide include homeless assessments that get them on a statewide by name list. And we're gonna talk a little bit differently about a different by name list that Connie's gonna start that discussion. But when we engage with somebody who is willing to accept our services, who is willing to receive case management, we'll help them get into a shelter, we'll get them connected to some type of housing program, and we'll connect them to other community resources depending on their needs. If they're like Connie had mentioned earlier, if they have mental illnesses and they qualify for AMHD, we'll get them connected to that type of case management. If they need assistance obtaining their documents, our outreach program can help them obtain their documents, their IDs, birth certificates, and other things, because those are typically the what their barriers are to getting into shelter, to getting into housing. And then, you know, we provide also the basics, hygiene supplies, and then how they can get food if they need food. But we continue that support with the intention of placing them in some type of housing or some type of shelter. So we use homeless management information system. This is the information that we put it, or every information, or sorry, when we enroll clients into our program, that this is the database that all of our information is entered into. And then what I really wanted to talk about is the coordinated entry system. Connie talked about it a little bit, but this is the system that'll get our highly vulnerable population off of the streets and into something more permanent and more stable. But it's a and Connie, you can help me out. It takes a while for this system to truly place somebody into housing. And part of it has to do with whether this person has all of their documents. Part of it has to do with whether this person can manage or navigate this type of housing resource. So our outreach team, along with other housing navigators, have to work this coordinated entry system to assist these highly vulnerable individuals that are out there. Now, so Connie,
excuse me, Macy, can I just jump in? Yeah, I just want to talk about, the coordinated entry system too. That's strictly providing a housing voucher or a housing opportunity for people. But, from what I have heard from you, Senator Favela and Sergeant Kahakimi, some of these guys, they're not ready for housing because, it's like they have to be people who can be a tenant, right? And they're not exactly tenant material right now in the moment. So we do want to work on stabilization, and treatment as one of the other things that needs to happen, because we've tried to house some people that were clearly not ready for housing, and we just kind of bombed, because the person, they just would not stop using sometimes. And I think part of it is the meth, and I can't stress that enough, is that ICE is just different, in terms of an addiction that people have. It's just super destructive. But anyway, I just wanted to say that this coordinated entry system is about the housing piece, but there's a lot of other stabilizing services that need to be matched with that. All right, Nancy, go ahead.
Thank you, Connie. And then I also wanted to say too that sometimes shelter, as Connie was saying, some people are not ready for housing, but sometimes shelter is also not the best fit for some folks. So it's hard for us, the outreach workers, to get people into shelter because maybe they're not going to be successful in that shelter due to their disabilities or their mental illnesses or their needs. Or maybe even the shelter doesn't have the capacity to provide what that client needs. So that's, it kind of makes it a little bit challenging for us. We may not always be successful in placing somebody in a shelter, depending on what that person is going through. But then we're going to run into the ones that, Connie was just mentioning, is the ones that are resisting services. They don't want to get off the streets, or they don't want to go into that shelter, or they're not ready for housing. But, they're not totally opposed to assistance, because we'll offer them hygiene kits, we'll offer them first aid kits. They have some glimpse of wanting to do something better with their lives, but they're just not ready. And so we continue to provide, we continue to offer services until they're ready to accept it. And that's our experience with the homeless population, is that it takes 7 encounters before somebody will accept services. And those services may not be shelter. It may just be, okay, case management. So we may need to case manage these folks for a while before they say, okay, I'm ready for housing. Okay, I'll go see a doctor. Okay, I'll do this. So while it does take a while, we understand that it is more of us trying to, I don't want to say convert, but just kind of give them some guidance on what they can do moving forward, or how they can get off of the streets, or what they can, what's available and what they can get connected to.
I think I wanted to add to what Macy's saying is that sometimes, people need to fall into a crisis before they actually accept services. So I think the outreach workers just want to be there when that happens. So you're developing a relationship with them previous to that, and that when they finally, they get hurt or something like that and they need help, and you're there to be able to take them to the hospital, then you get get more traction, for making different decisions. And so, unfortunately, like we were talking earlier, our system doesn't allow, a more aggressive treatment until somebody falls into that situation or they actually want it. But, we don't give up, and we just try, to really engage anyway. And like I said, to be there when that happens.
Thank you, Connie. And then, so some of common misconceptions of what we do and outreach is, these are some things that most people think that we do. And so we'll get calls and people will say, oh, outreach will take them to a shelter today. If you call us about somebody who's on the streets, we may or may not be able to take them to a shelter today because, one, like I said earlier, that might not be the right placement for them, or two, there might not be a shelter available at the time. And we get a list of all of the shelter vacancies on a daily basis through the state and the city, and they're able to tell us, or we're able to identify if there's vacancies, and we can, if there's a shelter available, we'll do our best to try and place them as quickly as possible. But that's one thing that most people expect is that they'll move right away, really quickly. The other thing is that, outreach can remove the person and their belongings from the property. Because a lot of times, and we've heard it before that, it may be an eyesore in the community, and we all agree that may be true. But outreach, we don't have the capacity to move personal belongings. We'll do our best to find placement and in a expedient process, expedient time frame. And then lastly is that we'll respond immediately. Like I said, we're in EVA every other week, but on the other weeks we're in IAEA, we're in Pearl City. So if we get a call, we try to respond as quickly as possible, at least within 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes that may or may not be successful in engaging with that person. Just like anything, we always want to strike when the iron is hot. However, it's just, if we get there as quickly as we can, we will try at every effort to get there as quickly as we can to engage with these folks that we're being referred to. But some people think we'll respond within minutes. And unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to do that. I've gotten calls from people who said, okay, are you coming right now? Are you coming right now? And we're like, all the way in Pearl City. And, we're like, we will respond as quickly as possible, we promise. But, we put in every effort to try to follow up on that referral within 48 hours. That's the most. One thing that I like to share is that outreach is one part of the solution, but not the only solution. And I'm sure we'll talk about more solutions today. And then some of the most frequently common resources, and Senator, you kind of mentioned a little before today, but Waianae Civic Center, the emergency shelter, KWO has their emergency shelter here in Kalaeloa, of course IHS and Next Step Shelter, Legal Aid Society, because that's how we typically can get folks obtain their documents like birth certificates. But then if their legal issues are a barrier to their housing, then legal aid can provide that legal guidance, because of course we are not qualified to do that. And then working with their healthcare plans if they're obtaining, if they have healthcare, and if they don't have healthcare, we'll try to help them get on Quest, because the healthcare plans can provide service coordination, and then the VA for any veterans that we encounter.
I also wanted to, when the HONU project, the city's HONU project started, it started in EVA, and it's moved now to the Ke'ehi Lagoon. But it is a wonderful Honolulu Police Department project, that has offered another shelter option for people, because they actually can stay apart from each other in their little smaller tents. Right now, they've been putting the tents into a larger tent because of the weather and stuff. But it has become a really important component of shelter for the island, because it will take anybody from, not anybody, but it'll take from anywhere. But they just have to meet the criteria. They have to be able to ambulate on their own and not need nursing services or something like that. So we do have a lot of people.
Nice about it is it's open all night. It's 24/7, where some of the shelters close, so there isn't an option. You know, right now it's still restricted as we're going from Post to Honu, you know, and in between. But we have another Honu coming in, another set of tents. And so when that happens, we'll actually have two. And as COVID kind of moves through its paces, we'd have two available. The key, though, is the community has to want it. I mean, you know, you're going to place it in a park or some facility like that, and it doesn't stay there forever. But it seems to have had, you know, the first sets of data from when it sat by Pahu and in downtown McCully, that it was pretty positive, and the police did a very good job of patrolling around it, so the community got a sense of upbeat there. But the community has to accept it. I mean, this kind of group proves that, you know, community's interested. So anyway.
Thanks, Anton. And IHS is also a full partner over there. So we have like health services that are made available through our nurse there. And we have somebody there who is, when they're doing the intakes, can do a lot of the referrals that normally they would get the help through outreach as well.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Anton. Yeah, I did really wanted to share about Honu too, because that is a really good resource. Thank you. And so how do we make a good referral? So anybody, you know, anyone on this call or anyone in the community can simply call our outreach line. What would be helpful for us when we receive a referral is names of the individuals or family and contact information if they have, if it's available. Some homeless have phones and others don't. But if they have a phone that we can at least give them a call, once we get the referral, we can call them immediately and say, hey, you know, I work for US Vets, I'm an outreach worker. I will come out and see you like either, you know, today, tomorrow, whatever. That way they'll know there's a way that we can, you know, that we'll be connecting with them. Photos are good too. So if they give permission to take their photo, that's good, because that helps us to identify them. But if none of those are available, then the following, the location or area, street address, cross streets, name of the park, beaches, or whatever, that will help us to locate them. A description of the person, so maybe approximate age, gender, race, anything that can help identify that person, that individual. Maybe even the description of their tent, or if they're living in a vehicle, what color their vehicle is. And then also any safety hazards that we should be aware of, right? So if that person is living in an unsafe environment, or if the place is, you know, compromising not just their safety, but maybe even the safety of staff if we tried to engage with them. And then if they have any dogs or other pets. These are all good information that we can utilize so that when somebody makes a referral, we'll be able to identify them and make that connection right away. So those are all the slides I have.
Thanks, Macy. Anybody have questions for Macy? This is about, you know, making a referral, because, you know, if we don't get a good description, it's like, oh, okay, how we're gonna find this person, right? And I just want to say that, you know, when you take a picture, you know, you want to be very sensitive, but you can do it from far away, because nowadays, like phone pictures, you can, you know, kind of blow up when you get it, when you receive it, and that really helps to outreach people, you know, to know, you know, what the person looks like. And the person is in public, you know, so they're not in some ways as protected, you know, when you're not using the photo, you know, for any gain or anything like that. And it's really to help them get help. So I would really encourage that if possible. So Jill, you want to put back up our slides? I think I'm going to skip through some of these slides anyway. I had wanted to just talk a little bit about, you know, just some of the things that we need to be aware of. You know, and these are just myths that I just wanted to throw out there. You know, we often assume, you know, that people have been homeless for a long time, but, you know, some of them, they haven't been, you know, really homeless that long. And sorry. And they're all mentally ill. In fact, like there's maybe about 20 to 25% of all homeless people that are mentally ill, but And that's higher than the norm for the general population. The general population is about 4 to 6%, but it's still not like everybody, right? But I think why we think these things is because the large proportion of the people that we do see that are homeless are the people you see that are unsheltered, and like the ones that are out in the open. And those people generally may have more of these issues. But, you know, it's not certainly when you consider all of the people that experience homelessness, because there's a lot of people that are in the shelters and they're seeking help. And there's a lot of people that you never see, that you don't even know that are homeless, that are maybe living out of their cars, you know, but you don't see them in their cars either. But I think Sergeant Kahina knows which ones are homeless, right? Because you keep seeing them sometimes in the same place. But, you know, these are, again, you know, like some assumptions that people make. And, you know, I've made statements about some of these conditions, but they're more for the unsheltered people and among chronically homeless people. Because even among the unsheltered, some of them are not, you know, homeless for a really long time. It's just for, you know, a short period of time. And some, you know, more and more we're seeing people that do have jobs, you know, that are living out of their cars. I think you probably see that too. And then, you know, there's people that, you know, they're dirty and smelly and they don't change or anything. But then there's a lot of people that do make every effort to get to a hygiene center of some kind to just, you know, look very normal and not look like they're homeless. And they certainly are not stupid or uneducated. Many of them, you know, have college degrees, and they just really made some bad choices sometimes. But just like this myth about, well, they're nothing like you and me, there's also a myth that homeless people are just like you and me. And in fact, that's not either. Next slide. So, you know, for people who, you know, like are just able to get their needs met all the time, you enjoy 3 meals a day plus snacks, maybe like me. And it's hard to understand sometimes for the person who is going hungry. And we, you know, have to understand that a lot of people, you know, who are homeless did grow up poor. You know, it's not to make a generalization, but that is, you know, something that does happen sometimes. There's just generational poverty, right? And when that happens, you kind of grow up different in some ways. And I'm not trying to stereotype or anything like that, but there are some, you know, like if you're middle class, you know, like you pay attention to certain things, right? You pay attention to whether your kids are gonna, you know, be able to sign up for, you know, Pop Warner football or Little League or something like that. You want to, you know, talk to them about, well, what are you going to do after you graduate, you know, that kind of stuff. But people from, you know, homes that are, you know, they're living in poverty, those are not the conversations that happen. You know, they are people that are struggling to survive, you know, from one day to the next. And so it's really a different kind of mentality. So their sense of time, you know, is very different. Either and like I mentioned in that second to the last there. And many of them pay attention to nonverbal cues, and it's related to the next one about arguing differently than you and me. And it's because and I don't know if you experienced this, you know, in working with some of the folks, Macy, but like sometimes the length of time getting from like, you know, just being able to talk regular to them yelling and screaming can be really fast, you know. And normally when you grow up middle class, you don't go that fast. Usually, you know, you kind of tolerate somebody, and you might, you know, like have this nonverbal and you look like you're irritated or something like that, right? Or you might raise your voice a little bit. But when you go from 0 to 100, or, you know, 10 is the highest, like it's pretty fast. And like they might go to 0 to 8 or 9, like when they just get upset about something. And it's not that different from when they're really, really mad about something. And so, you know, you do see that people react extremely. But I also want to say that when you have an overlay of meth abuse over a period of time, their ability to manage their emotions is also impacted. It impacts that part of their brain. And, you know, they're just not able to contain themselves sometimes. You have a mix of like, you know, just the way they were brought up, and then also the brain chemistry that's been altered by it all the time. And then, you know, they think about respect differently. You know, like, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, my mom always told me, well, you know, when you see somebody, you know, your elders, you have to greet them and look at them and say something, right? But that's not how people necessarily are raised. And so you talk to them, they don't talk to you. You know, it's like they can ignore you, and that's okay, right? So I think my point though is that it's really different they value relationships different, because the relationships that they have with other homeless people could be the difference between getting beaten up and robbed and surviving the night, you know, if there's somebody there to just basically help you. Next slide, Joe. They certainly value their possessions more than you or I, because a lot of times we can, you know, lose something, or, oh, we'll get another one or whatever. But for a lot of people who have become homeless, everything that they own is in that cart, or, you know, in the bag that they have. And, you know, they get really touchy about people getting close to stuff and, you know, them maybe losing it or whatever. But these are just all different things that people are experiencing when they're homeless, right? You know, so it's just stuff to keep in mind. And, you know, like I kind of go into this more when I'm doing, you know, other kinds of training. But I just wanted to point that out as a consideration. So we talked about, you know, the by name list Macy did, and you know, we wanted to talk about that as this is a way that, you know, you systematically end homelessness in a certain area or a certain population. It was used in the Mayor's Challenge to end veterans homelessness. And Macy, maybe you can speak to you know, how that was done, because you guys were meeting what, like every month or every week?
So we started off meeting every 2 weeks. And we started off with the simple by name list, a spreadsheet of the veterans that we were encountering, what their barriers were, and then you know, just trying to figure out as a, you know, as a group, as a committee, like what is the best way to address this population, you know.
So Macy, who was in the group? Like who was participating?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So the mayor's office, the Office of Housing, and then the VA, you know, Catholic Charities, US Vets, IHS, the state homeless office, so Scott Marshiga's office, HUD participate, and now we have, you know, Partners in Care. We also have Kaiser, and other healthcare providers, because while, you know, the veteran population, a large portion of the veteran population would be served by the VA, but then there is also this small pocket of veterans that are not VA eligible, and so we would have to get them connected to resources that, you know, would help them find housing and things like that. So collaboratively talking about these, you know, this list, how we're going to move forward. Oh, also community solutions. They Built for Zero helped us to really come up with goals, how we're going to accomplish these goals, what attainable goals are in terms of cutting down this number of homeless veterans, and how to successfully get them into housing.
So I think what, you know, you could start with as a community is pulling from the homeless management information system, like the people that are homeless, but you guys see certain people that you're concerned about. Sergeant Guy, you know certain people that are repeat offenders that you're most concerned with. And I would say, you know, some of those people may never get into our HMIS system because they don't want to participate. They don't want to answer Macy when they go visit them and stuff, you know. So I think we really need people's help to populate this by name list, because these are the people that are homeless in your community, and the providers themselves cannot be the only ones, you know, that are identifying them.
So that is the ongoing question, right?
Yeah.
So these individuals that don't want to go, they don't want the help, they're banned from some of the shelters, or majority of all the shelters. What do we do with these individuals? Where are they going to go?
I think the first order of things is for our homeless service providers to become more aware of them vis-a-vis your sharing that information with us. Because if there are people that, you know, like maybe Macy's team has come across, but they never answer, but then you know that aren't, you know, they are constantly being arrested for different things, or they're being picked up and cited for stuff, that would be information that's really important to Macy, so that they can, you know, then help do this piece of maybe getting court-ordered treatment for the person, or you guys together just how you want to make the case for them to actually be prosecuted, which sounds like there are some people that really need to have that happen to them, you know. So I think both of those things are important, but that's why I say, you know, let's all kind of think about how we can contribute to this by name list. So so anyway, you know, I mentioned everybody participate, and the goal is to centralize information so you got a better idea of how much homelessness you have by name, you know, so that when somebody gets housed, Macy can just like swipe them clean and they're like one person just kind of colored off the chart, and you know how many successful people you're taking off the street, getting into shelter, getting into housing, getting treatment, all of that. It also tells you really, you know, bottom line, how big your problem is. And then you can, you know, like I said, match a strategy that's appropriate to that person. Because you're not going to court order every person to treatment, because not everybody needs it. But there are some people that definitely need that, you know. And we've seen it work. IHS has done this, you know, with this in Chinatown, Waikiki, and the Windward side. I'm not saying we ended homelessness, but we certainly have identified some problematic people and tried to prioritize some people accordingly. And using them in specific encampments is really helpful too. Like if you know of an encampment and you just go and you interview everybody in the encampment and you find out who that they're in. It's a small group of people, relatively speaking, but it helps you basically take down one at a time, and then in the end, you hardly have anybody left, or maybe you have none left. Next slide. So here's an example that I made up of some of the stuff that an outreach team would look at. I'm not expecting you guys to populate this stuff in this way, but it's like just having a name, and then the household type. Is it like a couple? Is it a family with kids? Is it a single person? Is it a person, the head of household? Who is it? And then getting their date of birth and sex helps to just get documents sometimes, and then getting what we call the VI-SPDAT, which is the assessment of people's vulnerability. And then, you know, do they have their ID, or, you know, do they have it already? How long have they been homeless? Are there any urgent needs? Is somebody looking super sick, like they're gonna really die, there's no help done for that person? Do they have health insurance? Some people have, some people don't. What's their current health status? Some of them look like they really need to go to the emergency room, and, you know, we really got to get them there. So that's one way, you know, to just kind of build some rapport sometimes, is to get them the help that they really need if they're feeling really bad. And then, you know, what's their ethnicity? Are they a veteran, and discharge type? Because that really determines whether they get certain services or not. How long have they been in Hawaii? You know, Senator Favela, last time you mentioned some people, you know, that are here very short time. It sounds like they just arrived not too long ago. And we want to know, you know, if there are some of those folks, you know, because we do have relocation programs that can return them to the mainland as well. And then what is the reason why they're homeless? You know, maybe they did come recently, but they thought they were coming to a job, and then the job didn't work out. Or, you know, they just came and they thought, oh, I'm gonna make a fresh start. And they realize, oh my God, this place is so expensive to live, and they just can't make it, right? So there's, you know, those kind of people, but, you know, we just gotta find out more, and so that we can help them. And I'm not saying that we're gonna share all this information with you, but you guys are able to find out some information from some of the people if you actually spend time with them. You can share it with Macy, and then maybe a case manager that might also be involved. And then, you know, there's like certainly with the service providers, they decide what they're going to do as interventions. Like maybe they're going to refer for intake at a shelter, or maybe they're going to refer for, you know, like for the children, you know, connect them up with DOE, because DOE needs to get involved and know that this person is you know, homeless, living in a car right now, right? And maybe they have a case manager already, but, you know, nobody knows, and nobody's holding the case manager accountable. So if there's a case manager, we should let people know, if you see this person, they're causing trouble, call this case manager, here's the number, you know, and really share that among people. But it's really holding each other accountable, but also supporting each other, because we can't do this by ourselves, like Macy said. It's really like all hands on deck to really help each other. So, you know, so this is what we mean by a by name list. And, you know, like usually there's a date where they end up putting them on, and then we kind of track, okay, what kind of progress are we making with this person? And in the end, you know, if I could show you another diagram, it's like there's the people that are already getting services is in the middle, right? And there's all these people coming into the system, and there's people leaving the system as we help get them housed, you know, and we get them stabilized and stuff. Hopefully in the long run, in your Eva Kapolei area, this group of people in the middle that are getting served will shrinking, because there's more people leaving the system and coming into the system. That's why homeless prevention programs are so important. It prevents people from joining, into this middle group also. So that's kind of how we see the system. And I don't know, Macy, if you want to, add to that, but that definitely is what a binding list is for, is those people in that middle group. And slowly you're going to take them out and, send them where they need to go and match them with the services. And everybody that comes in, what their services that are needed, and we go and try to match them with the kind of services that. Okay, next. Oops. So these are important phone numbers, and again, I think I shared this with you the last time, but it's definitely important to have these numbers for yourself to call if you're looking for specific kinds of help. And Anton, I don't know if you wanted to add something more, because you did have that article in the paper over the weekend about all the different types of services. Okay, I guess not. Anton, you're muted. Okay, Jill, is this the last slide?
It is, yep. So I think we just figured if we wanted to have more discussion at the end, we would leave some time for that.
Okay, and then I want to remind you, I'm going to call Sergeant Kahekina and Peter, and we're going to work on that person, or the two people that you mentioned, and try to figure out what we can do with them so that you don't have to have them running around stealing all your.
So in the meantime, we wanted home never come to Ever Beach. It's supposed to be in the Mexico Park in the back by the city's Namor yard or base yard in the back. So we never got home. After home left Waipahu, it didn't come to Ever Beach. We wanted it to come to Ever Beach. So I understand what you guys are saying, but see, the process that we're talking about is no different than the process that we have with different outreach agencies. So I understand every agency have their process and the outreach team. But in the meantime, these guys are still the same group of guys. It's not the same homeless that we had in Never Beach before. These homeless are transit, the one services, and they'll continue to work the system. In the meantime, what are we going to do for those guys in Howbush, Community Park, on Wakapuna Road, Papiti, Makuli, those areas where they went from transition to the park, got the services, now they're comfortable in front of somebody's house, somebody's church, or somebody's, residence, whatever the situation is. What are we going to do with that? Because I understand you guys get a 7-way of contact. So previously, that's what the Ever Beach Lions Club been doing for the last 30 years in the community. We would work with the outreach program. That's the reason why I'm asking, because I was working and talked to Kevin Rathbone and tried to get in touch with you guys at the US Vets, because you guys had a couple of the guys placed in homes, especially the veterans. And up until a couple of months ago, he didn't stay there. The vets was paying for his place, and he had a nice place in Waipahu, but he was back on the streets in Ever Beach, and now he's not here. But sometimes they cannot go in 4 walls like we talked about. We know they cannot go into some emergency shelters because it's like a revolving door for them. And like how Sergeant Kaikina said, some of them already got blemishes on their record, so they cannot go back to these areas. So I understand the whole is like 45 days or less, but unless we can have a program like that in pretty much every community to get them out of the parks in areas where get a one-stop shop, it's going to be a revolving door for everyone. Kailua is growing in homelessness, and it's nothing to do with any of the agencies. It's just the economy, but it's not that easy to make the first contact, second contact, or third contact, because when you guys go back there, they're gone. They're someplace else.
So
Senator, we need an area like the Holo in every community.
So
that's something that we can be able to get them to US Vets, help HPD, and help the community clean up their parks and the streets.
Thank you. So, Senator Favela, I think I'd like to ask Anton Kraki if there's plans, like where is the next HONU going to be? Because if it was going to be in Eva Kapolei, is it maybe going to go there, the new one that's coming out?
Yeah, the second one hasn't been determined yet. I know there's discussion about Waimanalo for it, but I know in the last discussion I brought up that there was an active community group in Kapolei from this meeting when I was in the last meeting, so I wanted that teed up as well. But, you know, it doesn't stay in the community for a long time. It's just there for a few months, right? So that'd be one of the things this group could you know put in and tell us that you're open to doing that and the community is willing to do it. Probably check with the neighborhood board as well.
So I think that would be a really good move. You know, if HONU did come close, maybe that you would have a place for people to go. And I know for a fact that where they did go, like in Waipahu, they really cleaned up that area a lot. So when they left it, it was. And similarly at Old Stadium Park where they were in Mo'iliili, the same thing happened. So you should try to say we vote for.
Oh, Connie, sorry, this is
left a little prematurely, but you know, it's most effective when we start to exit out of COVID, right?
Hi, Connie. Sorry, this is Scott Morishige. I just wanted to let everyone know. So my office works closely with the city and HPD, and we actually hold the contract for the HONU. One of the things I think the community can do, if you're interested in bringing the HONU to your community, is helping identify a site, whether it's an existing park facility or somewhere else that has connection to water, primarily water connection, I think is really key, and is located in an area where it's not next to a school or it's not next to a place where it might be, you know, very disruptive, to try and identify a couple of potential sites for the city and HPD, because the city also needs to do some time to check those properties to see if there's any deed restrictions or other types of issues that might prohibit the use of a HONU at that site. But if the community can start that process now, I think that will be helpful to kind of identify potential sites in the area.
Thanks so much, Scott.
We had that. Along with Tom McDonald, we were trying to, and with the help of Cedric Gates, we had that before the virus had hit. Our Lady of Keal, which is in Makaha, they're willing to donate a half-acre lot for us to do the yellow category for the post. But when we actually went for the funding with the CARES Act, that was we ended up getting denied. So we're trying to start it up again because Representative Gates, with the help of Tanya from Calahoe West, we're going to try and resubmit again. But what we're trying to do also is provide our RCPs, the ones that are banned or the ones that are help or they don't want to go to a shelter, to come and get services over here in this area. We were, I'm sorry, but St. Francis West is all on board. The money was going to be used for not only the tents, but for shower stalls, for kennels, 24-hour security. We're going to have services where a lot of our advocacy groups could come out and take care of our RCPs that needed medical attention, dental attention. We're going to try and reach out to our Truist, the temporary employment company, and provide shuttle services for these individuals that wanted to try and get on a job. And we're also going to try and get the contact with Major Mike Lambert for bus passes for these individuals. But all that got stifled because of one, the pandemic, and then the other one was we couldn't get the funding for it when we tried to go after that emergency CARES Act. So we're trying to start it again. And I'm hoping with the help of Representative Gates and Senator Mali Shimabukuro, we can get this thing going.
So Sergeant Kakina, you feel like if it's out there, it's close enough for you guys to be able to send people out there?
Yes. Well, it's Pascal Beach Park if you go in Makaha. But it is a location where we can safely keep these individuals in one area. Right now, the way it is, they're just popping a tent wherever they feel like it. And then now, like Macy was talking about, the contact with these individuals, we really don't want it to get to that point where they say, you know what, okay, after maybe getting kicked out of the beach park 3 or 4 times, now they're ready to try and seek some help. I mean, which is good, but we're finding out more and more of our hardcore RCPs, they just don't want to leave Waianae. So in the end, what are we gonna do to try and help these individuals? So that's why we came up with the land at Our Lady of Keao. What I was able to do was, for about 2 months, I went to all of our community leaders from Nanakuli all the way to Makaha, and everybody was on board with that. We had the support from the community, and they thought it was a fantastic idea. But it was just a matter of getting the funding to get this thing off of the ground. And like I said, we're trying to revive it again because I think it's needed, and the community is for it. So we'll see.
So maybe you could reach out. I know that Major Lambert is like now, I think
He's
he
in
moved
District
on.
7 now.
Yeah, so the person who took his place right now is Lieutenant Joseph O'Neill. Yeah, so maybe you could kind of let him know, and you guys could start planning. That would be awesome.
I think, like I said, we're resubmitting the application again.
Yeah.
But we feel in the Waianae community, if this works, we can go to use that as a model for other cities on this island to try and see if they can do something similar. Because if they really don't want the help, then they're going to either get cited or they're going to get arrested. Whether the courts are going to prosecute them or not, we're going to continue to do the enforcement. But what we're trying to do is they've got limited options already. So if they don't want to go to a shelter, if they don't want any help, then we're telling them, okay, you can go ahead and live this way if you want over here. I mean, there's still going to be rules, but we're going to limit your options and not just allow you to just pop a tent wherever you feel like it.
Sergeant, we have to make sure, I'll check with O'Neill too, but we want to make sure that application's on Sarah Allen's desk, because her group is in, the community services are the ones that are taking the closest look at all of the CARES Act funding that's going through Congress now. So now that there's a new group of funding, we have to make sure the city's looking at all the different projects that all the departments want to do. So when these conversations come up, I'm trying to be pretty consistent about that. So we'll try to capture it. I'm in regular communication with O'Neill and Dan, and so that's good to know.
Yeah, so last year it was Tom McDonald from Ohana Ola in Waianae that submitted the application, and that was with the support of, well, at that time, Captain Lambert. That was just before the post program was started. So when we had submitted the application back then, they either didn't accept the application or they just ran out of money.
Yeah, I'll check with Dan on it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Well, thanks, you guys. Anybody else have any other questions or anything like that? I think what we'll do is put the, actually, I'm thinking, Joe, do you have well, I have a list of the people that are interested in that other training. So we're going to do a training on assisted community treatment later this month. I'm going to send out that invitation to those that express interest. And then you guys are going to pursue that application for the HONU. And then I was just wondering if, and Macy said that she would be willing to start that by name list, because she said people call her anyway. And so Macy, maybe you could make your by name list and see what it is that can be shared with everybody. And if people want to start putting stuff in there, like what I did was I put information in there, but there's some stuff that's hidden. If you see a little corner of that block that has a little colored corner, that means that there's more information in there. So you guys can add information by just going in there and putting insert comment, and then you can add some more about that person in those different categories. So it's really very helpful when a group of people are using a by name list to use a Google Doc that everybody can add more information to if you know that person. So I invite you to maybe do that. And then for you guys who, well, I don't think the people in this group is maybe necessarily the people, but we do have another training coming up next month, I believe. Joe, when is it that we're going to do one on how to deal with people who may be trespassing on property?
Yeah, we were holding time on the 20th of April, which is a Tuesday, but I think we hadn't yet confirmed that with everybody that needed to be involved. So we'll circle back with everybody when we have that firm.
Okay. And so, I invite you guys to let us know how these meetings, can be more helpful to y'all. We just wanted to bring people together so that we can share our mana'o together. Everybody has something to share. And I really believe that happened today, that people were sharing different perspectives, and we're coming up with some things for your community that, together, that I think will advance, the common goal of trying to help the homeless in Ewa Kapolei. So anybody else? Okay, then I think we're done, and we're a little early, 6 minutes before. So thank you all for coming, and we'll keep you posted on another time. And maybe if you could let us know, like if there's some other aspect, of the community response to homelessness that you'd like to explore. We certainly, Macy, US Vets, and IHS would love to continue to, help people kind of look into other things, or to just get educated about, different things as best as we can. Or maybe we'll ask one of you guys to maybe take a part in the next meeting as well. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.